What are we training people for in 2040? I think we were talking the other day about how like a kid who's born today, they're turning 20 in 2046. So that's like the kid I might be helping in 5 years. And what job am I helping them with? But first I have to ask you this, Brent. When do you think was the first computer?
When do I think was the first computer?
Yeah.
Well, I would say my memories of the first computer in my house, which I'm sure is different than what the first computer was, probably in the late 80s when the original little Macs we had at our place. It had like black and green screen. So I remember that late 80s into early 90s, but I don't know, when was the first giant computer before that?
Yeah, that's the first personal computer.
Yeah.
And prior to that, in the 50s, there's, these giant computers that were used. But the first computer was actually a human in 1700. And they all worked for an astronomer, and the astronomer would tell them about the functions that gave you the motion of the moon, basically.
So you're saying a computer is a person who computes things? They're a computer?
I'm telling you, that is where the word comes from.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it makes sense.
These people in the 1700s, I don't know that they were called computers. I think the 1930s and 40s in World War II, there were tons of humans doing trigonometry for battle plans that were referred to as computers. And then computers came along, making that job completely obsolete. We no longer need people to do any sort of huge manual calculation. We now have digital computers.
Yeah.
And the people who used to compute, they were like technical, mathy people. Today, they are computer programmers. Not literally, they're dead. But the people with those personalities are computer programmers. Just as like a provocative thought, how much more interesting it is to be a computer programmer than a computer if you're a nerdy person. Sitting there and doing calculations all day rather than using that analytical brain to solve problems, it's actually a crappier job.
I was thinking about that the other day, and for many years it's been of like, yeah, it'd be good for our kids to go into computers, like learn about computer science at school. But now a lot of those people that are learned computer programmers or that are going to be cut out and irrelevant by AI, where it's only like the top echelon of people that went to MIT that are running things, and that everybody that hasn't had that whole education can figure it out by doing some simple prompts. So what does it mean to have a job using computers now?
The guy who makes Claude Code, so he's one of those super MIT guys. The software itself, built by this master dude, is built by AI. So he is now controlling AI to build the AI programming software, and he's not even computer programming anymore. So even the top echelon is not going to actually program. They're still just going to manage programming systems. So I got a metaphor for you, which is electricity. Like before electricity came, the world was insane. I don't know. How do you think of electricity? What do you think it allows us to do?
Well, I guess now in our lives, pretty much everything doing what we're doing right now, besides sort of differentiating us between like Game of Thrones times now, and we panic when a circuit breaker goes out. Like, yeah, we're so dependent on it for literally everything that we do.
Yeah. And many things we find really rich, like watching The Sopranos. Electricity is a part of every single component of that.
It's also part of what is pulling us away from nature and actually connecting with the world a little bit. So I think humanity would be done well to spend more time away from electricity and not be so hugely dependent on it.
100% agree. And I have a quote from this dude who is an industrial critic. He said that this is in 1840. He's like, all these machines are making people mechanical in head and heart, as well as the hand. So he basically was like, this machinery is like killing our souls. It's turning your head into a machine. It's not just your hands that are a machine. It's your spirit that's a machine, which is pretty much what people are saying about AI these days, which I think is quite interesting.
I think in terms of the human body, people would always try to equate it back to being a machine kind of model. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts kind of thing. There's a spirit and emotion, a person kind of in there that is greater than a machine. To be fair, AI stuff is getting closer and closer to human-like characteristics and spirit. There's a strange blurring crossover there.
Yeah. Interesting to think how this guy thought that the mechanicalization of everything doing would mean that our spirits became mechanical, when arguably, people have quite a rich interior life these days. Perhaps it is more connected to screens and like bad shit. But the ability of just a regular person to think about philosophical problems that would have been totally impossible for most people in 1840, or the amount of news that a person has today, whether good or bad, like that's a whole nother argument, is so rich. You can do things that this guy could have never considered.
From what I'm noticing with my kids now, their use of ChatGPT and Claude is relying on it for knowing as a place to start. Like they're not knowing how to begin something. Their first mode is to let's go to technology to do this, and in the absence of that, they're just kind of stuck or wouldn't know where to start an essay or how to fix a bike. It accentuates our ability to do some things, but it crushes a bit of our others'
Yeah.
abilities.
And I think the interesting question that's hard to imagine is, when it crushes those abilities, are the new abilities we're going to replace them with in 10, 20 years? Are the humans better or worse? Because there's definitely like a Wall-E horror movie fantasy. Do you remember? But like basically, they can't walk. They're constantly entertained. They depend on machines. And the Earth is basically this like barren wasteland that only a corporation, I think, runs. A lot of the kind of fantasy, whether it's positive or negative about AI, it kind of sounds like that. It's like one day my AI will do all of this for me, leaving me to like ... And that's, to me, feels like a horror movie.
Yeah, and that's where it comes back to, I don't remember who wrote it, but the book called, I think it's called A Man's Search for Meaning.
No, Frankel.
Frankel. Yeah, that's when people don't have a sense of purpose. That's when they get sick and they get ill, and then they start having pain. They get the illness, they get disease, and they sort of mental health problems because they don't know where they fit into the world. From this technology piece, we have the ability to connect with and immediately see everything that's happening all over the world, but we have little to no ability to do anything about it, which
Yes.
creates a huge amount of existential threat for people. Like our brains and bodies aren't built to do that, or need to function within our own little community, go outside, get some sunlight on us and connect with our
Yes.
neighbors. It's cool we have all these toys and be able to do all this technology,
But
but
what
it's
can we
not
do with
actually
them?
better for us.
I'm going to argue that that's because information load has gotten huge, but the intelligence of our society has not. And so the intelligence to information ratio is out of whack, and that means we're essentially impotent. There's so many pieces of information we can't act on. Like you
Yeah,
hear
it's a
about.
paradox of choice. Like you're exposed to all these more options that might make you find a community of people that exist in the world. But if there's infinite communities, maybe you find one, but then you just feel like it's you against the rest of the world, and it creates a bit of tribalism between them. Or
Information flowing in. There's a great book on this called The Age of the Infovore, which argues that autistic people are especially set up to handle the future, which I think was actually a bit of a misread. But the point of the book is that the flow of information has radically changed. And so the old skills don't work. So I actually think what happened was there's like rush of informational technology, and then our cognitive technology did not keep up at all. And it's interesting to think of that as a metaphor for like a pre-electricity factory. But basically, my understanding is these factories had tons of people running the actual core steam engine that was running the factory. And what electricity brought into the scene was that we don't need the people to just do base movement, base power. We can actually like put that in each machine and then have the people be people who manage power rather than create it. And I think that could happen with intelligence. Right now, so much is, what do we do? Expert. Like, we constantly need to find intelligence to sort information to make good choices. But what would happen if that intelligence was completely saturated into society, like completely around you and usable for you at any moment? One possibility is agency dies. You go onto your Wall-E ship and you just outsource it. But another is that people who are really effective at using it become the people who can create communities that have time to hang out, for example, or can get away from the information overload and create protective barriers against it. Just in the way that electricity used to kill like lots of people and lots of animals because it was a wild thing. And then we slowly kind of constrained and got it.
We've used this
Right.
electricity to both expose ourselves to people that are entertainment and
Yeah.
people that are trying to educate, but they've blended into each other, and it's become an attention economy. Like people's attention spans have gone towards this shiny object that will make you laugh or can kind of do this or that, and then people that are trying to teach you or help educate you on meaningful things is lost in the shuffle. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that will seek out information, but it's hard to know what information
Right.
is true,
Yes.
and not get distracted by the funny little
Yeah.
video. So
And what
it's
is the phenomena in the world that can help you figure out what is true and how to not get distracted? It's intelligence.
how do you qualify or describe what intelligence is?
Okay, so I looked at some core definitions because it's a very interesting question. The two of the guys who came up with it are Binet and Spearman. So one of them said general mental ability that influences performance on many cognitive tasks. Mid. Another one, the ability to reason well, understand well, and adapt to circumstances. That one would kind of apply to what we're saying, that somebody who had good intelligence could understand better the impact of any Instagram video on them beyond the moment and
Maybe there's
could be,
just different layers or types of intelligence, like your ability to do and pick up concepts in math and
yes,
science, and your ability to understand the social intelligence of the impact of the people around you and your friend groups, like kind of street smart side of
yeah, well,
things as
check
well.
this one out. The global capacity of the individual to act purposefully, think rationally, and deal effectively with the environment. It's all subject to the environment. But because we have a fetish for intelligence, basically, we have made it super special. And in fact, those things I just described are kind of disastrous without a morality in it. There's a famous example in AI, which is like, what if you ask an AI to maximize the number of paper clips? First, the AI is going to just improve paperclip factories, and then it's going to build tons of factories, and then it's going to convert all resources in the environment into paperclip factories until we're sitting in matrix farms just producing paperclips. Because that is purposeful and rational way of dealing effectively with the environment, given the goal of making paperclips. And I think it
I,
shows you how immoral intelligence is on its
well,
face.
note I saw a little note, and whether it's true or not, that
Yeah.
they took all of the major AI platforms like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and had them run war game simulations, and all of them in the end use nuclear weapons.
Right. Right.
So like,
Because
yeah,
intelligence is relative to a set of premises. Like deductive logic is you start with your premises, you act with intelligence from there, and you get conclusions. But when your premises are wrong, you're fucked. And the most important one is making moral decisions about what we should do and then implementing them in not harmful ways. The idea that the AI can do that because it's infinitely intelligent, I think is insanely wrong, because morality has this subjectivity to it that makes it very about the humans who are applying it.
I think the most important thing to express to both adults and kids right now is to try your best to be a critical thinker. If you're using an AI thing to get you information, run that through another one. Try to come at it from a couple different angles and to help some of the garbage fall away from it. So it becomes a level of mindfulness of your ability to just stop for a sec and be
Yeah.
like, okay, is like, this is the information I got. What do I think about that? Do I believe that to be true? What am I going to do with that?
I totally think that's true for us. And I do think the people who are going to not think about it, like you just said, they're being born now and 5 years ago. And they're going to trust the AI is going to be correct about the
Mm-hmm.
facts. They're not going to live in a world where they need to critically check the facts. The facts will be right. They're going to have to know what to do with those facts. and how to build societies. One job is going to be effectively suing people who harm people with AI. Because if you don't have a society where your lawyer class can punish people who harm people with these huge technologies, you're going to have a worse society. You'll produce less economically, you'll have less happiness, you'll have more unhealth. So suddenly the competition doesn't go to who's got the biggest nerd, because we've all got Claude. Who have the lawyers who can keep the nerd machines from oppressing us and harming us, and create the system of incentives that puts that in a good path and not a dangerous path. And you can imagine one country doing that well and one country just fading into oblivion because they can't.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need to create new loops of accountability to
Yeah.
keep people in check and it not just all devolve. And I mean, the legal profession is going to be largely end up being AI driven as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
There's so much ability to produce legal information and to bring suits. And societies that have too many lawsuits will have a ton of resources going into adjudicating lawsuits that could be used for the people. But societies that don't punish AI companies effectively for the harms that they cause also are going to do poorly. So somewhere in there is a sweet spot legal system that has accountability but not frivolousness. And that's impossible for us with our little pea brains to figure out. But I can imagine the next class of lawyers engaging with those tools and spending their brain power on how to do that part, how to set up the society and the laws.
stemming from the beginning of our conversation, electricity and then computers and then AI kind of stuff. You talk about having morals within that system. All the AI safety people are quitting and saying, I can't do this anymore, is because they're not able to actually feel they're keeping it as safe as they can because the capitalism's taken over and there's different countries have different platforms, different programs, and they're just trying to stay ahead of each other from a military kind of standpoint. So it's going to keep going and keep going.
You have the municipal layer, and then you have the communities in the municipality, and the municipalities in the provinces. Again, we're going to need a fair amount of intelligence saturated into the environment to make any use out of that multi-layered network. Our brains, just being, I'm a political scientist and I understand all those layers in my personal brain, I don't think that's a sustainable future. But a sustainable future where people can make decisions across all those layers. And one key decision is, how do we keep AI networks that are harmful out of our local environment without destroying freedom? So I think people who solve those tensions are going to get paid. And I think there's going to be jobs for them. I don't think AI is going to take away human responsibility for moral decisions. And I think those are going to be a well-paid job in the future if you're effective at it. Kind of interesting, kind of like a priest used to be back in the day. They weren't paid well, but they were given a certain lifestyle because they could apply morality in a world of chaos. And then that kind of, we all know how that went. Choosing the right time, place, and model to use, and knowing how to handle the limitations of intelligence technology. Similar to how we might set up an electrical grid these days. A country that can set up a sustainable electrical grid is far better than one that has to burn a ton of coal for it. Similarly, people who set up AI networks that support society to do things in a healthy and sustainable way are going to do better than societies that don't do that.
So how do you see that happening when generally things that are set up for society are government's roles, but all of these technologies that are created are set up by private corporations that have different interests than the social and the rapid pace of change within the corporate environment is way faster than what government has the capacity to keep up with? Where do you see inserting this sort of moral compass in there that would have an impact?
Sorry to interrupt you. I think people are going to insert themselves. They're going to be like, we're setting it up like this, or in Vancouver, we've set up X system. You were talking about all the layers and the layers and the layers. I view that as relieving because no one level of the hierarchy can run the show. I think governments are going to become less important, or they're going to be one piece of a country's firepower. And the actual communities and people in those countries are going to be really important. The individuals in your country are going to really matter. And the groups in your country are going to really matter as much or more than the governments. And they're going to, in the best societies, work with the governments. And I think this is all going to evolve. I don't think we're going to just place people in these jobs. I'm more thinking if you're got a 5-year-old today, what does my 5-year-old need to be doing today? It's maybe not sitting down and coding. It's definitely using Replit to build code tools, but actually writing code, probably not. So suddenly it's like, how do you make your kid a good moral decision maker with information?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. That's
Oh, I thought you were going to have that, dude.
no, yeah, no, that's
Actually, so
still lost
start
on me.
making moral decisions, choosing which models to use and when. And thirdly, for any given amount of intelligence, increasing human joy, complexity, and flourishing. Electricity can be used to make a nuclear bomb, or it can make nuclear power. You can use a computer to make a terrorist attack. You can use it to stop one. It depends. And so I think just the judicious use of that technology to increase joy is like the third thing you can do. So making better moral choices, using the right tools in a way that makes people happy and more complex.
So are you framing those as jobs that your kid that's
More
born
like
now
more like
is going to do?
skills. And now I want to ask you, because I feel like you and I actually talk a lot about the intelligence we have only gets us so far in our practice. It's the judicious application of the technologies we know for the human in front of us.
Generally, job-wise, I think there's going to be a shift of a bigger element of people back into just some levels of trades and physical people
Yeah.
using your body, and in the helping professions,
Yeah.
which will be partly healthcare, partly some teaching and education side of things, and understanding the environment well enough to help people then navigate it,
Mhm.
which is kind of is what we're doing. Like we can work one on one with somebody, but then you still have to send them back out into the real world, which is a imperfect place. Trying to help prepare people to thrive in a changing environment, which is, I think, yeah, trying to help them be more critical thinkers and learn to use
Yeah.
these rapidly evolving tools.
And maybe helping them figure out what they should do. Not to say that we should take their agency or anything, but like from my experience in the medical system, that's something doctors are actually really pretty bad at when it's not obvious. Like if you obviously have a broken leg and you should fix it, they'll tell you that. But anytime there's any kind of dilemma, they're more here to say like, here's the outcomes and the probabilities of everything, but I can't tell you what to do. And I wonder if that's going to completely change. It's like I could ask ChatGPT can take my test results and tell me the outcomes and probabilities. I need an expert in maximizing my how healthy lifespan given these outcomes and probabilities. And so you have to sit me down and we have to talk about what I should do because that's the only thing left I don't know.
Yeah. It's been interesting seeing the shift of people coming in with when the internet got really busy and everybody would Google everything and come back, and you
Yeah.
could Google your symptoms and they come
Yeah.
back, and they for sure got cancer. Everything
Yeah.
turns into cancer as you go down a Google wormhole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the Not as many people are chat GPTing things as they were Googling things, but it's
Yeah.
happening more and more. And people are getting a more thorough response and trying
Yeah.
where you can put more context around it. And it is,
Yeah.
I've been generally quite impressed by that, but
I think
um,
it shows you what happens when you take information and process it through intelligence. Because
yeah,
WebMD was just information without intelligence.
yeah.
And then this is actually going to tell you it's probably not cancer.
Yeah, I've found it is quite good at unsiloing medical. If you needed to see like a ENT, an ophthalmologist, a GP, and or a neurologist or something, where they each would have their own sort of if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail kind of
Yeah.
thing. Where if you know the right questions, it can really
Yeah.
help you. And so helping people learn to formulate good questions to
Yes.
ask, I think is an important, that's part of being mindful, not just accepting the first answer it gives you, but
Yeah.
asking a question, getting an answer, and asking it 3 more questions to
Yeah.
engage in a conversation, not just say, here are my symptoms, tell me the answer.
That's such a neat idea. And like that's the job that barely exists now. Like helping someone create questions.
In order to be able to ask good questions, you also have to have good listening skills. So to prove that you're
Agreed.
hearing what the person has said or what you've read and processed, to then
Yeah.
analyze it a little bit and ask a pointed question to actually get you to the answer that you want,
Yeah.
not be taken over by kind of urgency to just sort of accept something right away or take it
100.
at face value.
You used to wish you were an expert who knew everything. Now you're going to be differentiated by how well you listened because that
Mhm.
allowed you to apply something. So to me, that's super positive to the extent that people are currently incentivized to know, but in the future will be more incentivized to listen. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I think that's key, and I think that's uh, again where it comes down to both people having time and people having attention. That ability is what we seem to be actively losing right now. So
Yeah.
people that pull and facilitate that back would be
Yeah.
is important.
And I do have the belief that like where you are in the present represents the choices of the past. So I agree that's where we're at. And my hope is that the influx of intelligence allows people to spend effort and time doing that and building societies that allow you to do that.
These resources can give people agency to then, when you go to see an expert, to be able to ask better questions because
Yeah.
you've been able to more meaningfully do some research if you were able to do that on your own. So I think people do need to learn their own layer of personal accountability, and then how to take that into and hopefully the people that are the experts or the people that are out there looking to help are able to adapt as well. I think it needs to
Yeah.
happen a bit on both sides. Yeah.
100%. So it's interesting to think about jobs where you have to adapt to be listening, sensitive, and smart with information. And here's my fantasy. This is my last one I want to share. My fantasy is that the politician becomes one of the most important and revered jobs in society rather than something that is like mostly reserved for narcissists and psychopaths. I just think that the digital intelligence is going to make it so that the good societies and the bad societies have a broader split between them. And so the benefit of having good politicians is going to rise because they're going to have more intelligence at their disposal, I hope. And so obviously that could lead to a terrible, very scary outcome. And I want to be clear, there's lots of freaky outcomes. But my fantasy outcome is that the politicians are special and important people. And if somebody has incredible skills, we think maybe one day you'll be mayor. And we like hold that with the same reverence that we would say one day you're going to own a $1 billion company or you're going to change the world globally. Yeah.
What would incentivize you to want to be part of our local or federal, provincial, or national politics? Like the current
Yeah. Like,
system does
it was
not attract
terrible,
you our
right?
best and brightest. So like what would have to happen for you to be like, yeah,
Okay.
I want to take the torch and lead in this situation?
I think the answer is like respect for politicians and politicians working in a respectful environment, world that was wonkier, where people cared about the core things being talked about. And there was a lot of detail work around that. And then there was a ton of cultural respect for those people. Now, do I know how we're going to get there? No. But do I think it might happen by the time I'm 65? I kind of do. And that's where the economics comes into it. So perhaps politicians can't actually make societies that much better or worse very easily right now because of the way that the politics are set up and because of their inability to process all the information about what's happening in society and the implications of their choices. My theory is that a good politician will create more economic value than a bad one by a lot. And being kind of a capitalist, I trust that over 10 to 20 years, if that's actually true, that there will be some flow of resources towards that and that structures will get set up to protect and value politicians if they can actually bring value. And my theory right now is that politicians are not that powerful. But if they were very powerful and could dramatically change outcomes, then the benefits of having good ones would be there. And I think there would be we'd be like, we can't have this psycho there. Like, we actually need somebody good.
Well, I mean, you look at a communist society like China, of where like they government positions are held in very high regard, and they do have
Right.
like, um, so. But I mean, you compromise one side of things to get another side of things. They are able to have better long-term
Yeah.
planning and long-term change, and have more power, and have sort of respect within the community. But they'll also, then can lose out on the moral side of things, because
Yeah.
if you give any one person or group too much power, then you can
It's a
uh,
nightmare.
it's a nightmare. I see so many people both in the healthcare system and the education system that keep saying the system's broken, and are getting pretty fed up by having someone at the top of the chain making a decision that's not an expert in health or in education, and
Yeah.
not appreciating the trickle down effect of that frontline worker, of what this stupid decision they made up there
Yep.
was. Uh, so yeah, I don't really have a
Yeah.
solution to that, but I
But it would
hope
be
you're
good
right.
if they were better at it. Yeah,
It would be
exactly.
good if they're better at it.